Video start. 3, 2, 1. Intro start. 3, 2, 1. Go. The return of What If Izuku Midoriya was Shadow. Part Shadow. Part Episode Shadow. I am all I am. Damn it. Yes, that's right. Art Shadow. Yes, well, last part of our little return journey. We're basically. Oh boy. Basically cleared the whole hero story up. And more news has been dropped about this whole Black Comet thing. Is it real or is it fake? And what could it mean? Our amnesiac friend, our really edgy amnesiac friend, does indeed seem to have the ability to will the Chaos Emeralds back to him, back in full swing again. Just not the Master Emerald, that was never the case. The Master Emerald. So yeah, that was kind of a one and done. However, well, it will always seem to be a one and done. there doesn't really seem to be anything really all that warranting a big deal recently. However, the team of three, the team heroes, Izuku Midoriya, Tenya Ida, and Ochako Uraraka, have been making great progress, even their own hero agency, which actually does pretty well. Izuku Midoriya's shadow couldn't be more proud for them, couldn't be more happy for them, you know? His brother and his friends. However, about Eri and Omega, well, like I said before, literally follows Eri like a poodle. And, well, it just seems to make everything out like our good old friend Izuku Midoriya's shadow is alone again, doing his own thing, not really bothering anyone. And so it happens. Something of a starfish-like entity seems to literally come out of nowhere. Like, literally appear out of nowhere, like thin air. And Izuku Midoriya's shadow seems to be on high alert, not knowing if this is friend or foe. This creature says itself to be merely a messenger of a champion of the Black Arms. However, its previous master, Black Death, a certain ally of another one of its kind, the Black Arms, Black Doom, this one, however, is simply known as Eclipse, and as a message, the champion wants Shadow. Eclipse, the champion of the Black Arms, wants Shadow for his insubordination. And if he can't get Shadow, then he'll get the next best thing, his son. Because he knows he's there. So, if he can't get Shadow for some reason, then he'll just have to get his son. Now it'll be Shadow's loss. And that's whenever Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply tell the squid-like creature that if it's hell it wants to raise, then take it to where this eclipse is. And, well, basically the jellyfish creature disappears in some sort of veil of darkness, as the veil soon consumes, Izuku Midoriya's shadow as well. And soon, they're both gone. And they reappear. No longer any need for the starfish ante, because now Izuku Midoriya's shadow is right in front of him. The champion of the Black Arms, Eclipse. As Eclipse tries to go for an attack, Izuku Midoriya's shadow shows him how useless that is. That he may even be more powerful than his father. Eclipse seems to be very surprised that apparently Shadow gave up his life in order to create a new alternate life form, one that calls him father, due to their strange relations, and that due to a certain tape, Izuku Midoriya's shadow is aware of everything to do with the Black Arms and their involvement with Project Shadow. And well, basically, Eclipse says, then why? Why step away from such greatness? And Izuku Midoriya's shadow plainly just says, because that's not what Father would have wanted. And Father, he was one of the best of them. Better than any of you. Black Death, Black Doom, even you, none of you were half as good as he was. That's whenever Eclipse would lunge himself at Izuku Midoriya's shadow, in which he would prove his point. Literally, almost knocking Eclipse's block off. With one attack. Then following up with two more attacks that would seriously wind Eclipse and almost knock him off his feet. That's whenever Eclipse would realize that he can't beat him. This guy has excelled way past what Shadow was like. This guy is way stronger than Shadow. Shadow's new alternate life form, his air quotes son, is far stronger than he ever was, or at least from what he remembers of Shadow. And that's whenever Izuku Midoriya Shadow would simply say, that's the point. Don't you get it, Eclipse? And Eclipse would simply say, damn it. I just want you to know that no matter what you do, you will never be able to stop us. The Black Arms will return, and we will bury all of you. And Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply say, oh, that's just adorable. You fool. And that's whenever Izuku Midoriya's shadow would just simply toss the Chaos Emerald up in the air. And whenever it would touch back down to his hand, he would say, Chaos Control. And that's whenever Eclipse would be like, you've been strong enough to use Chaos Control in my presence? Damn. This isn't right. Black Doom, Black Death. From what I learned from you, I should have known how to stop him. But nothing I do can seem to work. Is he really that much stronger than his old man? I've been in battles with Shadow before. He was never that bunch overclassing me. This is all wrong. That's whenever Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply get, well, a rude awakening. As, well, Eclipse in a rage would start to send out all of the black comets, well, anything. And one of the tentacles meant to puncture Earth for its resources would collide with Izuku Midoriya's shadow as he would be flying out. Smack straight into him and disrupt his ability to access the Phantom Chaos Emeralds that he could use before. Yet again, his chaos power was disrupted, or just completely enabled altogether. He couldn't really tell. But it indeed seemed that before they jumped ship completely, they scattered into different directions. So he would have to make a little bit of a split to see if he could find them. And so that's exactly what he would do. But he would also, talk up a good storm with his hero team friends, seeing as they might be willing to help. And, with more people on the case, it would be a lot easier to, at least in Izuku Midoriya's Shadow's mind, it'd be a lot easier to locate the emeralds and set things right. Finally, deal with Eclipse, and in dealing with Eclipse, finally, the entirety of the Black Arms for good this time. No more Black Arms, just sayonara completely. And whenever his hero buddies, hear about this, Team Hero, whenever they hear about this, they decide, why the hell not? Like, let's go for another adventure. And so, basically, the different areas, there would be different, assists kind of around to, go around with him throughout the different areas where there are bound to be Chaos Emeralds. The first area, a big city, pretty much mostly under construction and having a lot of hazard zones, so most people don't travel around this area because of all of the different, hazard signs and, things telling you not to go through there. But Izuku Midoriya's Shadow is saying, we can't let that deter us. The Chaos Emerald could be anywhere. And so the first person to join up would indeed be the other Izuku, Canon Izuku. Deciding that, he's been called brothers, so he's gonna take advantage of that opportunity and use it to go adventuring with his other version of himself. And so they descend upon the city, ready for adventure. They would go blasting past any obstacle, charging straight through. As Izuku would recognize that they should probably keep themselves at a steady pace if they actually want to find the emerald. And Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply state that that is true, but also it can use his regular chaos energy to sense the emerald. All Ken Izuku has to do is keep out for the different spots, keep an eye out for them, so that they can make it there as fast as possible before Eclipse even knows what they're trying to do. And soon they would see a bunch of different Black Arms members deployed out. And that's whenever Izuku would plow straight through them with Detroit Smash, sending them flying. And that's whenever Izuku Midoriya's shadow would be thinking about something, and then he would see a simple row of rings in which a bunch of Black Arms members would be in the way of the row, and he would simply toss something over to Izuku. And almost another thing, like an assist for the first thing, and as the two things would be attached, and he would put this simple bracelet item on, he would now be informed he has the power of the homing attack, not the homing attack, the light speed dash. And Izuku being like, what's the light speed dash? And Izuku Midoriya's shadow basically saying, focus on the rings and you'll figure it out real quick. And so Izuku would focus on the rings and then go for a running sprint. And then all of a sudden, his speed would go to such lengths, it would almost be like he was literally going at light speed, sending all the different Black Arms members flying. Izuku would have to make occasional jumps over pits, but other than that, he would be a-okay, able to send off complete and total several light speed dash moves. And even, you know, hook it up with a little something Izuku figured out about. Something Izuku Midoriya's shadow was actually, you know, talking about. A little maneuver called the homing attack. And he found out just the trinket that allowed him to execute the maneuver. And so all of a sudden, he would activate it, and all of a sudden, he'd be chaining up light speed attack dashes with homing attacks. Several of them. And all of a sudden, they'd be going through the area even faster than they were before. Now that he could finally keep up with Izuku Midoriya's shadow. Ken Izuku felt the breeze like it was nothing. And Even though he would normally think it would be demoralizing, it wasn't. He was perfectly fine. And at the end of their destination, they would see it, the glowing gem, the first Chaos Emerald, and they would collect it. Alright, the first Chaos Emerald. And Ochako and Ida would, be on the communications, and they'd be like, "You guys did great! Yeah, that was awesome!" And basically, Izuku Midoriya's shadow would be like, "So, you've both mastered the Let's Be Dash and the homing attack. Well done, brother." And, well, Izuku would just be like, "Well, in order to keep up with you, I had to." Just seems that little add-on device that you put onto the bracelet merely helped with controlling everything of the actual Lightspeed Dash, entire thing. All of that. Now, where's the next destination? Oh, and just a little side note, guys. I've never really played Shadow the Hedgehog before, so I really don't know the order of the stages. And, well, yeah. Basically, it would say, like, as they were going through, different stages, they would get up all the way to 3 Chaos Emeralds finally, and they'd be coming up upon their 4th. And it just so happened to be in an area known as the Glyphic Canyon. And that is where they would meet up with Eclipse. Ida deciding that he would want to help. Ida and Izuku Midoriya's shadow both be looking over the area. They would have to basically race over to the area where they were to rendezvous with Eclipse. Seeing as they had basically pretty much 3 Chaos Emeralds, Eclipse had none, and he was getting to be very nettled. So he might want to try to ambush them. And so Izuku Midoriya's shadow, being very smart, basically straight up messaged, basically hacked into the whole Black Comet system and messaged Eclipse telling them that that wasn't going to work because they were going to the Glyphic Canyon too. Because they already knew that that was Eclipse's plan, He was going to try to find the Chaos Emerald that was at the Glyphic Canyon. And basically, they would have just told him that, that was going to be Shadow's, Izuku Midoriya's Shadow's next destination, the Glyphic Canyon. So basically, they were both heading at the same area at the same time. So basically, rendezvous there, and they would fight for it. Fight for the Chaos Emerald contained within the Glyphic Canyon. And away they would go, as Ito would basically be prepping himself, and Izuku Midoriya's Shadow would just be like, well, and Ito would be like, oh yeah, that's right. Can't be late. Don't need him stealing the Chaos Emerald. Well then what are we waiting for, Ida? Let's do this! Damn it! They'd be approaching the area and then blazing through once they had made their mark. Making it all the way through, dashing, swerving back and forth as they would get around across hazards and take out any black arms that they saw. Ida having a little bit more of a difficult time than Izuku would have had if he was here, and Izuku Midoriya's Shadow noticing that, but even though he was having more of a difficult time, that didn't mean he wasn't able to actually take them out. It was just a little bit of a slower process. However, whenever Ida did realize that they were lagging a little bit behind, that's whenever he would actually activate his quirk, and that's whenever the pedal would fully be put to the metal. And upon activating his quirk, his kicks became stronger, and with the force behind everything, even his punches would improve slightly, allowing him to much easier be able to take out the Black Arms. And while Izuku Midoriya's Shadow saw this as the perfect opportunity, save some of that energy whenever we actually get to Eclipse. Ida, allow me to take it from here. And Ida would simply state, alright. And they would simply make their way through the Glyphic Canyon. That's where they would see the emerald and a beam touching down from what seemed to be a very powerful, swirling red portal in the sky. Whenever they both simply knew that was Eclipse. As Eclipse would be there, so would someone else. They would attack Eclipse from behind, Eclipse saying, damn! What the? And then they would hear, ho 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 ho. Did you really think I was just going to leave this alone? You fools. This is my perfect opportunity. This was not going to be something that was going to be easy. And that's whenever it would be revealed that Eclipse's whole thing about not having any Chaos Emeralds would have been a lie. As 2 Chaos Emeralds would soon be lifted from Eclipse's basically limp body on the ground, as a 3rd one would be taken as well, the one that they were going after, Izuku, Midoriya, Shadow, and Ida. They would try to dash after it, but Eggman's Eggmobile would simply fire at them, so they would have to make a hasty retreat. And Eclipse would simply be summoned back up to the Black Comet, where more of his Black Arms would be waiting to be deployed somewhere else. Eggman would now have 3 emeralds, Eclipse would have none, and they would have 3 emeralds. So, in all reality, there was still 1 emerald that had no owner. And that emerald was pretty much bound to be in one place and one place only, seeing as they hadn't checked any other area. However, it would be very dangerous, seeing as it seemed to be an area with a lot of molten lava magma activity, if you know what I mean. Or at least something similar to it. However, it also seemed to be like a big base of sorts. Almost as if they crashed through the base with enough force, they'd be able to basically slip straight in. Ochako wanted to come through in this one, and so she was allowed. She was indeed deemed useful, and so she was allowed to come along. So, without any further ado, it would simply be a matter of the waiting game. When Eclipse would deploy, when Eggman would deploy, when they would deploy. It would be a great race to see who would get to that emerald first. In this almost lava sheltery-like area. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you know what I mean. Damn ads. As they would both see the entrance, they would barrel towards it. The area would soon be theirs, and so would the Chaos Emerald. And so, they would make their way through. However, it would begin to become apparent that with a lot more black arms being dropped, it's almost as if Eclipse was keeping his eye as he was racing towards a destination point. He was keeping his eye on them. So many of them. Ochako could only take care of so many at a time. So Izuku Midoriya's shadow have to deal with some of them. However, it didn't really come to be much of a challenge. And as they would blast through the area, the only thing that would really come to be a surprise, well, not much of a surprise now, seeing as he had just now revealed himself, seeing signs this could possibly have once been an Eggman base. Almost like a failed base he just ditched whenever he got bored. And it would even become more apparent as they would go through with all of the more Eggman themed traps and hazards. And even soon they would see the Eggmobile flying overhead. They were losing the race. Both the Black Comet and the Eggmobile were gaining on the Chaos Emerald. They needed to get to that Chaos Emerald, and fast. And that's whenever Ochako just simply thought of an idea, just make herself really light, and so that Izuku Midoriya Shadow just throw her really far, because she could already see the vantage point where the Chaos Emerald was, and so if they did it now, well, they should actually get her to be able to be at the point. And, well, if Izuku Midoriya Shadow does it right, he could actually pull a spin dash off that would cause him to careen all the way onto the platform where she would end up on. And so, that's exactly what Izuku Midoriya Shadow would do. As Ochako would make herself a lot lighter, he would basically Goku Dragon throw her, and she would indeed, with cat-like, reflexes, land on the platform where the Chaos Emerald was, and then almost exactly after she would land and pick herself up, she would see that Izuku Midoriya's shadow was right there with her, already up and ready and raring to go. Ochako would think how fast Izuku Midoriya's shadow was, and just how strong he was too. However, there was no time for that. They needed this emerald. And that's whenever, descending from the Black Comet above them, be Eclipse, shouting, "My emerald!" And that's when Eggman would simply deploy several egg pawns going after Eclipse from behind, and they would all make the leap for the emerald, in which they would crash into the vantage point in which the emerald was being held, and it would almost be a race to see who could catch the emerald before it fell into the lava. And That's whenever an arm would extend out. They would wonder who, what, when, where, why, what was going on. Sucker! That could only mean one thing. That arm came from the Eggmobile. You really thought you were going to get away with this? Eclipse would be holding onto the emerald at the same time that the arm would have pulled it away. So he would basically be dangling in midair, holding onto the emerald that Eggman had already claimed. As he would simply just slam the arm into a wall, knocking Eclipse out and almost plummeting him into the lava. That's whenever, grabbing one of his arms, Izuku Midoriya's shadow would pull Eclipse up. Eclipse would ask why. And Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply say, if I were to tell you, you probably wouldn't understand. Anyways, he has the Chaos Emerald. And that is not good. I think we all know that. And that's whenever Ken and Izuku and Ida would soon arrive afterwards, hearing about Eggman's little, well, chase with, Eclipse and Izuku Midoriya's shadow. This will basically be the ultimate crazy move. And Eggman would say, and now for the rest of you. This is it! My ultimate! Egg Dealer! Mark II! Damn eggs! Now you realize what you're in for. The more the merrier. Soon, almost like a slot machine, their fate would be decided. And a blast would emerge from the egg dealer, Mark II, sending them all back, almost straight into the lava. But still, Izuku Midoriya's shadow wouldn't give up. It would almost seem hopeless, but it wouldn't deter Izuku Midoriya's shadow. Nor would it deter Ken and Izuku, as they would both fire up spin dashes of their own. And they would fling at the egg dealer, and it would deal serious damage. It wouldn't take much for the egg dealer to crumble, and Eggman to resort to the ultimate of cheap tricks. he would eject his main engines, blasting at Izuku, causing one of them to explode on him, and the other engine to seek out Izuku Midoriya's shadow, in which he would simply send out a Chaos Lance, destroying the second engine. But since they were merely main engines and Eggman could deploy backup engines, it's not like Eggman was scared or anything. After all, he did have a good amount of Chaos Emeralds. He had 4 and they only had 3. All he would have to do was hoodwink them once, and he would have all 7. That's whenever it would be simply decided Eclipse would have had enough. Eclipse, being desperate, would have hooked him up to the main hive mind of all of the Black Arms, telling them to join their power with him and make him their true ruler. Not just their champion, but the one true ruler. And then, shit would get real. This was going to be something unreal, as all of the main subconsciousnesses of all the different Black Arms will become one with Eclipse. Eclipse becoming the true ruler of the Black Arms. Even more of a ruler than Black Doom or Black Death. He would become the true ruler of the Black Arms. And he would destroy the insubordinationists known as Izuku Midoriya's shadow. And he would claim all the Chaos Emeralds for himself. And then he would destroy Eggman, were his acts of defiance against the Black Arms. And then he would create a new, stronger Black Arms. One that would never lose to simple fools like these. Yes, Izuku Midoriya's shadow and Eggman were going to be Eclipse's 2 new main targets. Now that he had joined his entire being with the hive mind and entire spirit and soul of the Black Arms, he was truly one. They were all like several arms and hands that he could control at will. And him fight as well, increasing his power as long as increasing theirs. This was not going to be an easy fight. But then again, when was an easy fight ever a fun fight? That's whenever Izuku Midoriya Shadow would simply think to himself, there's something off. And that's whenever Eclipse would simply explain it. That off feeling that you're getting, it's happened before. This is not the first of the Black Comets. This is the Black Comet Reborn. The original destroyed by Shadow, your father. Whenever it was about to collide into Earth. Whenever he shoved it all the way into the incoming beam of the Eclipse Cannon. What will you do? You don't have anything like that. And that's whenever Izuku Midoriya Shadow would think. Everyone in UA, Class 1B, Class 1A, Class 1B, General Studies, Support Class, everyone, even the people from Shiketsu, he would want to send a message out to them. Even the teachers, even the principals of the both schools, he would want to send a message out to them. To call out. To give him their power. Basically, for them to send their power to him. Because he was going to need their power if he was to do this. He would convert their power into pure, untapped chaos energy. He was going to convert it all. That's the only thing that could equal the amount of power of the Eclipse Cannon in his eyes. And the Eclipse Cannon was needed to destroy the original Black Comet. However, he would first have to get rid of Eclipse. Eclipse would now know himself as Black Eclipse. Or Black Devil Eclipse, as he would soon call himself. Black Devil Eclipse. And that's whenever it would happen. The ultimate battle. Black Devil Eclipse versus the ultimate life form, Izuku Midoriya Shadow. And that's whenever you would feel the energy begin to well up within him. Everyone, even those of Shiketsu, would have heard his plea. Izuku would make sure of it, that it would get to everyone. Both 1A and the rival school Shiketsu would be giving him their energy, knowing how urgent of the situation. What would happen if he were to fail? And so, the battle would begin. Ultimate battle of destinies would commence. Let's talk. The Day of Destiny, where Izuku Midoriya's shadow would set things right. As he would charge in. You can't defeat me! I am Black Devil Eclipse! And Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply retort with, and does it really look like I give a damn? Well, short answer is, hell no! As Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply charge forward, breaking through all of the different black arms, simply degrading the amount of power that Eclipse had until he was completely drained of them. And then Eclipse would say, "You, how did you? I, I I am invincible. You cannot stop me. You cannot not stop the inevitable. Even if you destroy me, the Black Comet will still." And then Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply say, "Wrong again." And he would simply get a swift punch to the gut. And that's whenever Eclipse would be like, "No!" And Eclipse would simply have to watch as the light would fade from his eyes. He would see the Black Comet Mark II falling down to the ground and being stopped by Izuku Midoriya's shadow, then hoisted back up in the air all the way into space. And then he would fire. He would say, "Super Chaos Control." And that's whenever Eclipse would say, "You did it. You converted their energy into chaos energy. How?" And that's whenever he would simply see all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds appear, spinning around Izuku Midoriya's shadow as they would create a golden aura bursting into life. Super Izuku Midoriya's shadow would be reborn again. Super Izuku Midoriya's shadow would have just completely obliterated the Black Comet Mark II. And any hopes of the Black Arms trying to cause mayhem and destruction. And that's whenever Eclipse would finally fade, simply saying, "Damn you." And that's whenever Izuku Midoriya's shadow would simply say, "Many have. Well, many have tried at least. Now to snuff you out like the rest." Yeah. And that's whenever the last of Eclipse would simply be snuffed out of existence. And, well, that's not enough to consider it a win-win. I mean, the Black Comet Mark II is destroyed, and, well, everybody took part in that. And basically, Eclipse is no longer a thing. And basically, Izuku Midoriya's Shadow's will alone was able to will all of the Chaos Emeralds towards him and, well, give him a super form. Eggman basically being like, "How? How were you able to will them back to you?" And, well, Izuku Midoriya's Shadow would be like, "A magician never reveals his secrets in an ultimate life form, especially not to someone like you." And, well, just as Izuku Midoriya's Shadow is about to put a Chaos Lance through the Eggmobile to cause it to explode and basically burst Eggman into flames and just, rubble of destruction and everything else. Finally killing him off. Well, basically, just as the Chaos Lance would go through and cause that explosion, you would see a little, thing that would basically be a voice tape be dejected and fly straight into Izuku Midoriya Shadow's hands. And what would play would be simply Eggman saying, "Sucker." Yes, the Eggman slips away again. Off to do some horrible, terrible deeds somewhere else. Just can't be freaking caught. At least stay caught. So, yeah, the Black Arms are done through, and, the Black Comet is done through, Eclipse is done through, and so, yeah. Basically, what do we do with the Chaos Emeralds now? And basically, UA would have the Chaos Emeralds before they were able to disperse, basically use some sort of quirk binding energy trap to, bind the emeralds into, a certain casing to where they could, lock them up in key, make sure no one else gets them. So right now, UA has basically the Chaos Emeralds under custody. So, yeah. UA has the Chaos Emeralds. So, if Izuku Midoriya's Shadow or Izuku in general ever needing a super form, they could just ask, and, UA does indeed have the Chaos Emeralds now, so it would be just that easily. So, yeah. And, well, with everything said and done now, we have basically Izuku Midoriya's Shadow being well, after all of that, what really is there left to be said? Other than, well, Izuku Midoriya Shadow would look to find his canon counterpart, and basically whenever his canon counterpart found him, he would basically run up to hug him, and, well, it would be something sweet, but also short-lived, seeing as Izuku Midoriya's Shadow feels that, after so long of being a part of all of this, he should finally, do something, with his life. He can't just be lounging around with the Midoriyas all the time. He's basically decided he's going to make something of his life by, well, he heard of a military unit back around, where Shadow was, his father. They were known as GUN. So, he's thinking about doing that. That was a whole big thing that was a part of his father's life, so he's thinking that maybe if he could find something like that, he could get into it, and he could use that to actually, better himself and better the lives of other people. So, he would indeed find something of a military unit of sorts. I guess you could call it the WMU. I'm going to call it the WMU, the World Military Unit. And basically, WMU, World Military Unit, they basically decide, have Izuku Midoriya's Shadow, or as they just call him, Shadow, as their little secret project. Something that they could call their own. And Izuku was like majorly against this because, he doesn't want anyone calling him their project. But Izuku Midoriya's Shadow insists that this is the path he wants to take. And so, basically, it would be very sorrowful goodbyes. However, not all would be lost because amongst this whole thing, there would have indeed be something mentioned by one of these people. A place, something, of a little bit of a detour. Apparently, they have themselves a princess. And they also have themselves a little bit of something of a festival. And that gets Izuku interested. This is a festival in which they celebrate their sun god. And that's when they're all of a sudden, without warning, Ken Izuku would go sprinting off. Only really saying that he's head over to the place. Because, if anything, if Izuku Midoriya Shadow is going to do this to himself, then Ken Izuku is going to finally make something of his own life. He's going to break from the hero team, and he's going to decide that this will be his next course of action. This will be who he is. A princess, a festival, a sun god. What can go wrong? And yes, that's right. That is merely hype for Part 06. Not Part 6, but Part 06. As the Sonic 06. Yeah, Part 06. That's what I'm going to call it. Part 06. So, yes. Indeed, if you could hear, it is the end of the true story. The basic, true story credits theme never turned back. And you know what that means? That means it's the end of the video. I don't see any justice because the Dark Shadow Maverick is all you tea out of here. Your boys like, favorite, subscribe, and something about the description. Ad, adas.